Welcome to episode 44 of the Sourcing Challenge Show. I'm your host, Mark Lundgren. In this week's episode, I sat down with Lucian Ivan, who's a good friend of mine that I met some months ago by doing a job in Barcelona. And he had a story that I definitely wanted to share with this community. I sat down with Lucian and, as always, asked him how he got started in sourcing.
It was by accident. I never planned to be a sourcer, or I never planned to be a recruiter. I think it started out with having, let's say, a kind of a fallout in terms of analyzing career paths with my parents. And I was basically kicked out of the house, so I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And by, let's say, some circumstances, I ended up getting a scholarship in the US. And lo and behold, when you come from Eastern Europe and you go to the US, you figure out that, oh my God, things are expensive. And you kind of have this nasty habit of every day you need food. So I figure out that, in order to get this, I need to start working. So the first job that I could find, having zero experience in basically everything, was with this management consulting firm, and it was a sort of a trainee job where I started working on business. So it wasn't recruitment, but it touched on human capital. Basically, we were doing restructuring for a large air operator, and I was so proud of my work. I'm working on impactful things, a strategy. I get to learn from incredibly smart people, and so on and so forth. And it hit me one day because we got on the criteria on how to prioritize people that were getting laid off, and it was by how many members the families had. And then kind of the impact of my work really hit me. I said, look, if this is management consulting, or if this is a taste of what I will be doing in the future, I don't think this is for me. So I took a step back. I looked at things and said, yeah, when I'm going to go back, I'm going to try to figure things out. It worked out interestingly because my boss on that assignment was named a global HR director for a large service company, and she needed somebody to handle operations from recruitment perspective in Romania. She trusted me and said, yeah, I just be my right hand in that business, and let's go at what we can build out. It's been amazing 3 years in the service industry, where I got to work on some really interesting things. We were working with drones and face recognition and things like that in early 2011, 2012. So it was quite cool to have this center in Romania, but naturally, once things started changing that business, kind of realized that, oh, I'm in the service business, so this is in no way, any shape or form any better than management consulting, because basically we're selling people out there and it's not really ideal. So I said, okay, I'm going to try another industry. Let's see if it takes off. So I was working on the side with a couple of companies on tech recruitment projects. And I was doing some subcontracting work for a large headhunting agency here in Romania. I ended up working with a client that wanted me full-time on site. And they just happened to need a recruitment manager. So I started in the beer industry, where I knew nothing about beer, apart from drinking it. I mean, it was amazing. But other than that, I had no idea on the complexities behind it. And spent quite a lot of time in there as well, routing between basically Czech Republic and the UK. And I got a call one day from an executive search agency, which wanted to basically put me in touch with a CEO that was trying to build up a business. And this is how I got to work with a company in Estonia that's building e-government solutions. And this is where I actually started my first, let's say, real hardcore technical recruitment job. And it was back in 2015 when I was trying to understand what Glenn Cathy was publishing all the time, like this ands or ors, or I was like, okay, this guy, like in his databases where he has all the data in the US, it works, but this is Europe. We don't really collect that much data, or at least we didn't used to do it. So I said, okay, but I really want to understand what he's doing. So I started educating myself, and you start from the sources that you have available. And then I found Dean Da Costa, and I just couldn't keep up with him, the amount of tools that he publishes every day. And I stepped back a bit. So I said, okay, if I'm going to have any success at this one, I might as well educate myself, try to learn the basics. And so I did. I had amazing people with me on the journey. A team, some of which you might know, they constantly keep winning your sourcing challenges. So yeah, I mean, after that, I started with my own business, working with customers across Europe, and this is how actually we had the opportunity of working together. I never thought that sourcing would be something that I would do. I never thought about recruitment as something that I would do. I always started from the idea that I need to understand what I'm doing. So this is why I really try to educate myself around business. And it started back when I was working in the service industry, where I was part of the target operating model being defined and everything around this. So it was an incredibly amazing school for me. I managed to sharpen the saw even further when I was working in the beer industry. There you kind of have changes going from year to year. If it's a good year, if it's a bad year, you need to grow, you need to decrease your business. So I kind of started to understand my impact in the overall business, and it culminated with everything that went on with the Estonian company, because as we were growing, I needed to step up and bring my input to the table in terms of strategy, in terms of understanding where did the money come from, how that will be divided in terms of business lines, furthermore broken into projects, how those projects are going to be staffed, what kind of interchangeable things we need across the business, because it was consulting at the end of the day, and you cannot afford to have people on the bench. So naturally, I needed to understand where are they coming from, how can I best enable this, and once I tried to manage that in a way that I was comfortable with it, I started driving it in the sense that, I see a trend in the market. I have a conversation with my delivery manager. I have a conversation with my CEO. Try to understand if it's a trend that we can apply in our business, and if so, how can I manage to build it from a human capital perspective. And I've like from that moment onwards, when I looked at how I would source people, how I would pitch them, screen them, and so on and so forth, only one thing: am I able to basically capture them in this business story that I'm trying to put out there. And in terms of building everything on regarding the supporting system, finding the people, it came as a byproduct. So I was trying to put myself in situations where I wasn't the smartest person in the room, just so I would be able to learn from the others. So I was constantly listening to people that were speaking at conferences, how they're doing things, trying to tackle conversations with them afterwards, trying to basically swindle them in terms of revealing their secret sauce, which kind of was the same for everybody. So I said, okay, let's get our things together with the team that we had, and let's try to define our ways of working and our tools. And this is how we started looking at defining the sourcing stack in a more strategic way, putting tools in place. Because anytime you're going to get a new recruiter in the business, regardless of the recruitment manager or staff recruiter, they're going to say, your recruitment process doesn't work. So it's luckily that I'm here now, so it's okay, we're going to fix it. We're going to redefine the process, we're going to model it, and we're going to look at the stakeholders, and we're going to talk to everybody, and it's going to be fine. That's a load of bull. You just need to figure out what works for you and to be as seamless as possible in terms of the process. So yeah, long story short, for me, it was a byproduct becoming a sourcer, and it was a byproduct of trying to understand how to best serve the business and enable that. And we've worked together, and at some point, I think I was annoying because I'm more interested to see how business works than to actually exchange ideas on what kind of tools, how you're going to scrape, and things like this. I'm much more interested to see where the money comes from. So that was it for me. Rather than that, I'm technologically agnostic. Yeah, I use these days Amazing Harry because it helps me a lot in everyday business.
It's about speeding up things that you know how to do, but it's faster to do it with a tool that helps you.
The fact that in terms of recruiting for tech profiles, because I can take advantage of it being an aggregator from multiple streams, it speeds up my work tremendously. There are some roles in terms of business that definitely there are better tools out there. But when it comes to technology, yeah, I enjoy toying around with the idea of building a custom search engine that I update every day in terms of results, harvest the data, try to figure out where do the connection points are, and in terms of having profiles on multiple platforms and so on and so forth. But that would mean probably one day for me. Maybe I'm slow, but I like Amazing Hiring because basically I can do in 10 minutes the work that it would usually take me a couple of hours. So that then I can focus my energy in other areas. It's not about finding 100 people. It's about finding the people within the 100 that are actually a good fit and trying to speak to them in ways that actually engages them and matters. To some, I might invest the time in recording myself to speed up things. To others, it might mean more if I send a written message. To some, it works in various ways. So I would rather invest my energy in finding the ways that can help me better connect with people than to actually go around the internet trying to find everything in all the dark corners and being super excited when I found the 10-year-old GitHub profile that still responds and commits, and it's something that something that I can use tools for. And this is why I started learning other things. This is why I got into scraping. This is why I got into mix and match in terms of messages. This is why I got into automation as much as possible. This is why I started learning Python 2 years ago, just to automate as much as possible in order to spend my time more and more connecting with people. A lot of people, there's this latest trend is about OSINT. And everybody is happy around that topic, but nobody really tackles the human side of things. So the human intelligence, trying to actually connect to people, see what pushes their buttons. So I'm more into that these days than trying to figure out which kind of Chrome extension. Dean will always be online for that. I really trust Dean Da Costa on that to do it way better than I could do it. And there are always smart people out there from which you can learn from.
And you're one of the few people I know that's both lived and worked in the Middle East as well. What's the kind of big difference from a recruitment point of view between Europe and the Middle East?
It very much depends on the category of people that you're trying to recruit. If it's technology, it doesn't. It's not that different. It's not that different because people will speak the same language. They will be interested in the same things, and to a various degree, you will encounter some challenges. Like people will not want to work on a certain platform, on a certain solution just because of religious convictions. They will not want to work with other people because of personal convictions. And that's fine. You adjust to that. But technology is the easy part. When it comes to business roles, when it comes to consulting, that's where it gets tricky, because it's about who you know. It's about being able to connect with people in their own language, understand what are the best times of the year when you can actually approach people. Be ready to spend 15-20 minutes in a screening just talking about families and about the weather outside, and then get into the real nitty-gritty of things. But I believe that growing up as a teenager in Middle East, it's always fun to live when you're 14, 15 in Saudi and in Qatar. I got to see Dubai when it was no more than
fishing village.
Yeah, but it was basically a very fancy highway and some buildings. I don't know if that says about me that I'm too old, or just that Dubai really developed itself. But I'm grateful for that experience, because I got to see the other part of the story and actually understand where people are coming from. And it helped me also in terms of recruiting in Europe. And people are extremely busy these days. Mm-hmm. They're extremely connected to their devices. Rarely do they want to connect with their own families, let alone with some guy from Bucharest that is pitching them a role X and Y with company Z. So you really need to be able to walk in another person's shoes and to understand. I've recruited on site in Middle East, in Africa. Every time it was the same story. Even if it was on-site relocation or on-site or relocation, I would end up talking to partners, I would end up talking to children, I would end up talking to pretty much the entire family, just to make them feel comfortable with the life choice at the end of the day that they're gonna make. So it's all about this. I always prefer to overinvest in talking to people than have the Kinder Surprise type of experience where they just open up the egg and it's like, oh, it's a Schmorf. I was hoping for a racing car or a rocket, and it's just a pony or a princess or a Schmorf. I try my best to avoid that. I always try to help them understand what will be the change in their life if they basically go with me on the journey for changing their jobs. So this is, and it's regardless if it's a mid front ender or if it's I don't know, a COO or a CEO. It's the same deal. I remember one time I was working with a company in Germany. They basically call themselves the feedback company. They were trying to reshape the way they were doing inside sales, and we were trying to get the best and the brightest. And when you try to go for that, you usually go UK, which is basically the extended UKI, or you try to relocate from the US. US is expensive, but so is UKI. So at the end of the day, you're trying to appeal to their very personal interests. So I managed to find this person that was earning probably 13% more. But he was going through challenging times in his life, and he needed to be on site. He needed to be in Germany to actually see his daughter. I would have never learned that if I would not have spent probably 2 hours on the phone with him on a Thursday evening, just going very personal, like, look, this is it. The company has great potential. The role has great potential. You will have all the money in the world to go for it. There's a huge investment fund behind it, but there is this. There is the salary pay cut that you need to take, and there's moving to Germany, which in terms of weather is no more nicer than the UK. And we got to the point where it would actually make sense for me because I have this personal situation, and this is why. I was out actually in the garden, and my wife came over after probably 90 minutes and said, like, are you on the phone with the same candidate? Like, still, yeah, we're going to be done soon. So yeah, it paid off. And it's been, I think, 18 months since that moment. And he's doing fine. He is actually being groomed to take over as CEO of the company. So when I see things like this, it kind of makes me happy, and I can go home and tell my little daughter that, yeah, your dad had this impact in someone's life today, and this is how I take it.
Talk to me about the Romania market. I know a lot of companies have or are looking at Romania. I have an old boss who now has a team in Romania.
Yeah.
With all the challenges that comes with that. You know, companies or people who are tasked with hiring Romania, what do they have to think about?
In terms of looking at Romania from bringing your business here, you need to understand a very simple thing. This is going to be the next tech hub in Europe. And this is where it's going to make sense to have a team, either if it's working on consulting or a product. For the better part of the last decade, Romania has built an outsourcing industry, which was amazing. And we have large companies that have set up office here, starting with your old boss in Microsoft, going for Accenture, Baring Point. Pretty much all the big names in the industry are here. But for probably 4 or 5 years now, except for the obvious giant, which is Bitdefender. Later on came UiPath. We started developing products locally for the last 3, 4, maybe 5 years or so. And though the teams are quite small, probably 30, 40 people in size, the businesses are not. And it's starting to be a great place, not only in Bucharest, but also in other parts of the country. And today, though we have a major deficit in terms of IT workers, the universities are pushing out a lot more graduates. And not only that, but we have informal trainings that are putting to market other amazing people. So think of it this way: you had people working in logistics, going for business analyst classes, and they have that insider's point of view when it comes to logistics, or when it comes to supply chain overall. So they make great professionals. You have people turning from math teachers to developers. So we have an amazing community around R and Python as well. So things are really picking up. If you're looking at Romania as your next destination to build an office or a delivery center, this is the place to do it. In terms of cost, it is still cost efficient. In terms of human capital, it is amazing. And you have people here not only that were groomed within the local IT sector, but you have people who returned from Switzerland after stints with Google. You have people coming back from San Francisco. You have people coming back from Germany, starting up businesses here or taking on teams here. So things are starting to shape up in the right way. So definitely, this is something you cannot ignore. We do still have some challenges, and this is going back to one of the conversations that we were having at some point. Locally, we are still facing challenges in building up the capacity to acquire the type of talent that we need. So there are still not, let's put it this way, the sourcing community is not strong here. There are a couple of people doing cool stuff. There are a couple of people being exposed to different things. There are a couple of people have worked on international contracts that have worked in different setups, but on a consistent basis, there is no one unitary team that is able to deliver in the right way. So right now, we still have to catch up a bit with what the industry is doing. I think we're going to get there probably in the next couple of years. let's see where things takes us, because basically people want to learn. It's just a matter of having access to the knowledge and being more vocal around the community. And there are people gathering around, there are people organizing some meetups, there are people organizing some communities, but it's still very much HR driven in the sense, oh, look, let's look at the processes, let's look at getting a seat at the table and so on and so forth. So the type of conversations that you used to have across Western Europe or US or Asia, probably 5-7 years ago. Whoever understands that the new trend is ingrain yourself in the business, immerse yourself in the business as fast as possible, then use all the available tools that you have to get the right people in. Those people, those companies and those people will win the game. It's fair and simple.
People want to stay in touch with you, Lucian, and yeah, learn more, see where you're going, yeah, ask lots of questions on your different experiences. How can they best do that?
I tried at some point keeping up a Facebook profile. I didn't manage to do that. I think it was the most challenging 2 weeks of my life, with Twitter as well. I'm always on LinkedIn. I write a couple of things on my blog, but I mean, you know it best. When anyone wants to get a hold of me, I will definitely invest time with anyone and everyone. So just feel free to drop me a note or WhatsApp me. I have my personal phone number is listed on my website, so I'm fairly easygoing.
Perfect. Look, thank you very much, and yeah, see you soon.
Appreciate it always. Thank you, Mark.
If you like this episode, please consider sharing it or any of the other episodes with a friend or a colleague who might be interested as well. And consider subscribing to the channel, which will help us reach more people and grow the community.